Well, when I think about how my disorder started, I can definitely trace roots of it to my childhood. Um, I mean, I never really knew how to like feed myself lunch during the summer on summer break when my parents weren't home. And I remember that my mom used to pack me these lunches in this little like compartmentalized lunchbox, and it would be balanced between like different categories like the starch and the protein and fruit and vegetable. And then when I was trying to feed myself, I got really obsessed with keeping a balance between those, more so than I think was actually good. And then I guess the first like major the first major time my disorder influenced my life was 7th grade. Right before 7th grade, I grew 5 inches and didn't gain any weight. So I went from being this very chubby kid to suddenly being really, really skinny. And my doctor was like, you have to gain weight. This is not healthy. And I really didn't want to because I finally felt good about my body. And that was a struggle for that whole year, certainly, with I don't want to gain weight, but I have to, but I don't want to. So I guess that was where it started, where I would identify it as being possibly really an eating disorder. So in addition to my eating disorder, I have clinical depression, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? Fuck. Should I do that again?
It's fine.
Okay. You can just cut it off after ADHD. And they're all really connected, except maybe the ADHD. But the others very much are related.
So would you say that your eating disorder was influenced by by the OCD, by the anxiety, by the depression? Would you say that they were influenced by the eating disorder? So I guess a better way to phrase that would be, is the eating disorder a symptom of your other disorders, or the other disorders symptoms of your eating disorder?
I think if anything, the eating disorder is a manifestation of my other issues. My depression, one of the ways it manifests is I stop eating, I don't want to bother with meals. My OCD very much led into the eating disorder, I think, in the obsessive counting, tracking, recording. It was really, really obsessive for me. And I think the food was something for me to obsess about, to satisfy my OCD.
And I'll pretend that I wasn't there for this, but can you talk about what life was like when you were in the throes of your eating disorder, like the worst part?
Mm-hmm. So the worst time for me in my eating disorder was 10th grade. And it was quite a year. I spent most of that year malnourished, underweight, starving, and deeply, deeply unhappy. I was obsessive about food, calories, weight, numbers. I counted and recorded everything. I remember I had a little notebook that I carried around with me, and I would write down every single thing in as much detail as possible so that when I got home, I could log it in my online food log. And it became this cycle of obsession in that I would see what I ate, and then I would say, oh, I have to eat less. And then I would record that and be like, oh, I have to do better. And it really became destructive.
Did your family ever say anything? And if so, what?
My family was oblivious for a long time because I worked very hard to make them not know. And for the most part, I was pretty successful. I mean, I think my mom, who's a psychiatrist, may have thought something was up, but I think both of my parents have, for a while, wanted it to be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with our kids. Like, our son isn't depressed. Our daughter doesn't have anxiety disorder. And that proved very harmful. I remember one time my dad said to me, Mariana, I wish you weren't depressed. I'm like, yeah, I wish I wasn't depressed too. Ignoring it doesn't fix anything. And I think they were able to ignore it with my help, purposefully trying to make them ignore it for a long time.
So fast forwarding to a more recovery standpoint, when would you say you decided that enough was enough?
I first tried to recover around spring of 10th grade, but the issue there was that I was trying to satisfy other people in my life who said, you need to stop this, you need to get better, you need to eat. And I wasn't invested in it for myself. So I ended up just ricocheting to binge eating, which wreaked havoc on my life in different ways. But the first time I made a real commitment to recovery was fall, beginning of junior year, I'd say, when I was like, I'm tired of this. I am tired of starving myself and losing weight and tracking everything and then bouncing to overeating and gaining weight. And this whole time, no matter what I was doing, feeling so much shame. And I think that was what really made me stop and say, I don't want this.
So what would you say would be the most driving intrinsic motivation that you found over the course of your recovery?
Throughout my recovery, I think what drove me was a feeling that I didn't have to feel this way. I didn't have to be in so much pain. I didn't have to hurt myself to deal with the hurt I felt. And I think what really kept me going through recovery was hope that there was something better. And really, one of my biggest motivations was a friend of mine who had successfully recovered. She had been someone who I had sort of bonded with over the eating disorder, which is unbelievably destructive. And at one point she said, I have to cut ties because I need to get better. I need to get healthy. And you're not someone I can have in my life right now. And then about a year later, I sort of connected with her again, and she was doing great, and she was happy and healthy and eating properly for the first time in a long time. And I thought, wow, I could do that. I could actually get better.
So do you believe that a full recovery is possible?
Oh man, full recovery. I mean, it depends, I guess, on your definition. To me, full recovery would be, it doesn't affect my life at all anymore, ever. And I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I know that now I don't so much have disordered thoughts, but I still struggle to go to meals. I struggle to make myself eat dinner when I'm really not feeling it, not for restrictive reasons, but for other reasons. So I'm dealing more with the behaviors and how they interact with my life. And I don't know whether I'll ever fully get away from that. I hope I will. I really hope I will, particularly because I want to have a family and raise kids, and I want to be able to set a good example of a mother who loves herself, loves her body, knows how to eat, how to feed her children, and can teach her children to love themselves too. Because I know that as a kid and a young adult, my mom was a harmful factor, not on purpose, certainly. Like, she never made comments about my weight. She never said, Mariana, you should lose weight. But she would criticize herself. She would talk about, like, a dessert not being worth the calories to eat it. And it was ingrained in me, I think, from a young age, that that's normal. That's, like, the proper way to do it, to criticize yourself and find. I don't know whether that'll ever be possible.
And then, this is a question I've asked some of the people that I've interviewed, and then also not some of the people, but is there anybody that you've affected with your eating disorder that you would want to say something to, whether it be an apology or calling them out, anything in fairly broad terms, not naming names or anything, but just like somebody that you've affected with your eating disorder who affected you because of your eating disorder, and what would you say to them? Like a parent who, or like a friend, a parent, a therapist.
If I could say something to the people in my life who have influenced my eating disorder or were influenced by it, I guess I would say to my teachers, thank you for noticing, thank you for caring. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to receive your help in the way that it was meant. To my friends, I'm sorry that I dragged everyone down a bit with my issues. To my mom, I know it's not your fault, but that doesn't absolve you of your part. And to my friends who discouraged my self-destructive behaviors but supported me even through them, thank you.